and I now play in church, at church concerts and any special events. And if there are any luncheons or anything special is going on, Pedro will accompany and we'll play charity gigs. But it's all nice because it keeps the old brain cells going. It gives me something to do during the day. Not that I haven't got anything else to do, but I set aside special time so that I can do my pan practice. I haven't been able to do it since I come because I don't know where Sean has got his pan. I think he's hidden it somewhere, but I haven't been able to do it. Plus I've been very busy. And I'm going to talk this morning, won't be too long because I see time is going on. God assures us of his presence. And just as we spoke about how God answers our prayers and how he hears our prayers, I chose Joshua because when God had told Joshua to take over from Moses, he said, I will never leave you. I will be with you. And throughout the Bible, there are so many times when different people have said to each other, I will never leave you. How reassuring. I think if somebody can tell me, I will never leave you nor forsake you, how reassuring that will be for me. And I'm sure for a lot of other people, it's really reassuring words. When Moses himself was going to give up his job as leading the people of Israel, he told them to. He said, God has promised that he will always be with you. And those words kept those people going. When God took Abraham and led him and said, take your son, your only son, and sacrifice him, he was doing something that he didn't know what was going to happen. And in the end, God was with him. We think of so many other people who God has said, I will be with you, I will never leave you. We think of Samuel when he was sleeping that night and God called him. And Eli, he got up and he went to Eli and he said, did you call me? And Eli said, no, I didn't call you. Go back and lie down. And he went back and lied down again and he heard a voice and he got up and he went to Eli again. He said, did you call me? And Eli said, no, I didn't call you. Go and lie down again. And if you hear that voice a third time, say, speak, Lord, for your servant heareth. So even though Samuel didn't see God, God was with him. And that is what I'm trying to bring over this morning. When Jesus was walking on the sea, and Peter was afraid, and Peter thought he was going to sink, and Jesus said to him, I am with you. And Peter stretched out his hand and said, yes, Lord, it is you. We think of Moses on the burning bush. He couldn't see Jesus, but he knew God's presence was there with him. And that's what we are thinking of this morning. The way how God assures us of his presence, whether we can see him or not. He is there with us. And so many times we think of situations where, is God really there? Think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they were thrown into the fiery furnace. We might not be thrown into a fire, but day by day we go through fires. Day by day we are being put in a burning bush. Our lives, our emotions, our sometimes physical, mental, financial, we are sometimes in burning bushes. We are sometimes in the lion's den, we are sometimes in the fiery furnace. But God has said he would always be with us. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego wasn't there, and Nebuchadnezzar said, let the God who you serve deliver you. He said, yes, the God who I serve will deliver us. And weren't they delivered? When Daniel was in the lion's den, and he thought the lion was going to consume him, and he said, my God who I serve will deliver me. So whatever we are going through, whatever fiery furnace is, we might not be put in a lion's den as it is, but we might be going through really difficult times in our lives. And we can be assured that God will always be with us. When the reading that Miriam did, God wanted Joshua to take over from Moses. And Moses, it must have been very reassuring for Joshua to hear those words. Joshua had a task set out before him, and God assured him that he would be with him just like he had been with Moses. Moses had done a great job. He was now dead, and God wanted a leader who would take the children of Israel further. And he chose Joshua. And he said to Joshua, do not be discouraged. Do not be downhearted. I will be with you. And those are the words we are going to focus on, that God said, I will be with you. He led the children of Israel, and throughout all their difficult journeys, Joshua kept obedient to God. And that is important. If we want God's presence, if we want God to be with us, we have got to be obedient. And Joshua was obedient to God. He did what God asked him to do, and so he went and he led the children of Israel through. Throughout the book of Joshua, we see how many times the Israelites rebelled, but Joshua was always on God's side. Whenever he spoke to the Lord, whenever he spoke, the people listened. And they listened because they knew he was a man of God, and he was leading them in the way that God would have them go. It's always God's presence that will take us through difficult times. We can make the most of our time in every season by following Jesus closely, spending time in his word and prayer, loving and forgiving more freely than ever before, and serving others generously. Matthew 28:20, when Jesus was sending out his disciples, he told them to tell the people about him, and he ended by saying, and surely I am with you always, even to the ends of the earth. So throughout, we see how Jesus and different prophets reassured God's people, reassured them, I will always be with you. In this life, stormy circumstances are inevitable. Although our first reaction may be to run from the problem, we can trust God's presence to navigate us through any storm. So always remember, let us always remember that regardless of how bad the situation is, how terrible it seems, God is always there to reassure us and keep us under his care. And I just want to read Genesis 31:5, and that is when, that was the words of Deuteronomy 31:6. Be determined, that is when Moses was given over, when Moses was speaking to the children of Israel. He said, be determined and confident. Do not be afraid of anyone. Your God, the Lord himself, will be with you. He will not fail you or abandon you. There is another promise. In Daniel 3, we read about the three, about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and how they trusted God to be with them and deliver them from the fiery furnace. In Hebrews 11, when Hebrews 13:5, Paul, Luke, and other apostles were writing to the Hebrew Christians. One of his letters, he said, keep your lives free from love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. So we can see from various different people in the Bible, different prophets, how God has promised to always be with us. And as we go through this coming week and through the coming days, let's keep it with us. Let's know that wherever we are, we can ask God's presence. We can call upon him, and he will always be with us. He has said it. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. I will be with you always. And so I leave you with those words, that God's presence is always with us, and we can be assured of his keeping and his presence. The last reading is